What does it take to thrive in crypto? Crack the code on Web3 and help thousands break free from the 9-to-5 rat race. Well, in today's interview, you're about to find out. I'm sitting down with Danielle Lukins.
I got out of the rat race, the 9 to 5 matrix, and I really wanted to find a place of digital nomads, of people that have the same mindset as me, as the growth mindset. A lot of people are trying to be the hare, so they're trying to get into these meme coins and hoping for 100x, but without having the foundational skills to understand how the market works. I think Bitcoin could still dip 50% and could technically still be in a bull market.
Founder of a powerhouse Web3 social media agency and a trusted voice behind major platforms like KuCoin, Bitget, and SwissBorg. From the stages of BBC Radio 1 and NFT London to the front lines of crypto education and regulation, Danielle is not just navigating the future of finance, she's helping build it, which is why I'm so pleased and honored to have her on my channel today. So buckle up. This conversation is packed with insights on her journey getting into crypto, to market psychology, and her experience and advice on what it really takes to invest intelligently in Web3 and the crypto market. So thanks so much for joining, Danielle, otherwise known as Crypto Crush. What's actually very cool about having you on the channel and just you in general, and I guess how we met, is that we actually met in Bali at Nirvana. This is not a commercial or a promo for them, but it is, I think, almost hands down the coolest gym in Canggu in Bali. Anyway, it's a bit of a crypto hub there. I remember us going out to like the lounge area, Kyle and I, which we're now engaged. I know, he's so cute. Side comment. But thank you. Thank you. That's its own story. But anyway, yeah, it was so crazy because we'd go out by like, you know, the little loungers and stuff, and like all these crypto people, you know. I think Kyle was like pointing out some people. He's like, that's an influencer, you know, I don't know what. And then we met you there. Yeah, anyway, it's cool to have you on the channel. Yeah, just awesome. Side note, I guess, like Bali and Thailand, which is where we live most of the time, are both like pretty big crypto hubs from everyone who escaped to yeah, pretty much, right?
Exactly.
But anyway, kind of on that note, like, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from and what took you to Bali?
Yeah, so originally from the UK, and yeah, I got into crypto maybe like 6 years ago. I was 17 at the time, couldn't even buy crypto by myself. I had to get my dad to, or convince my dad to get a Coinbase account to then buy Bitcoin for me. So that's another interesting story. And then, yeah, really started to like grow my investment portfolio, fell in love with crypto and what the possibilities were, and got to a point where, you know, I got out of the rat race, the 9 to 5 matrix. And, you know, I really wanted to find a place of digital nomads, of people that have the same mindset as me, as, you know, a growth mindset. And that really kind of accidentally took me to Bali. I got a one-way ticket to Australia, my visa ran out, and then I just randomly decided that I'd end up in Bali and met amazing people, huge crypto hub, huge digital nomad hub. And that's kind of where I've stayed now. I've been there for or here just over a year now.
Yeah, well, you're in paradise, so like, no doubt. And then how did you, or like, okay, so you touched on this point, so we're just gonna like hone in on this for a bit. So you said you escaped this whole 9 to 5 rat race, right? Which I think is the dream. Most people who enter crypto or, you know, Bitcoin, especially with this whole like meme narrative, which we'll get into here in a bit, you know, you hear of like people that, you know, made millions of dollars by buying, you know, a few strategic meme coins. But I think that's the dream, right? Like what you're living, and in large part what I'm living as well. And I'm a huge like walking testament as well as to like the financially transformative power of crypto and Bitcoin, but like what advice would you give somebody that is also trying to escape the 9 to 5 rat race, because you hear about crypto, but like you still have to pay the bills, right? So like how do you go into crypto full time? Yeah, how do you do that?
I mean, I can give you like my backstory. I have the perspective of like the turtle and the hare. A lot of people are trying to be the hare, so they're trying to like get into these meme coins and hoping for 100x, but without having the foundational skills to understand how the market works or how to even execute a trade like that. As in, I act like the turtle, so it's taken me somewhat 6 years to learn all of these different foundational skills, which is like technical analysis, also understanding blockchain technology, trading, trends, narratives, networking with the right people. So I've built a load of foundational skills that then have helped me create, a long-term investment portfolio, but also be able to execute trades and execute them properly and have the mindset and the mentality to be able to handle the emotional volatility swings. So it takes a process, and it's time and it's commitment. And during all of this, I also had a 9 to 5 corporate job. So I had that money coming in there to give me stability. But in my spare time, I used crypto as a side hustle, as a learning curve, as a place where I can educate myself on a new emerging market that I know in the future's going to be mass adopted. So it was slow and steady, and I built that up over time. And each year I would get better and better and better to a point where my portfolio was at a position where I could quit my job and then move to Bali and live this lifestyle. So for me, what I would recommend anyone is to have a foundation of cash flow, whether that's, a job or side hustle, learn about online money, learn about, it could be digital marketing. That was the route that I went down. And then, have the time to build up other skills, which is like trading, technical analysis, understanding crypto, blockchain, and build up your portfolio slowly. And as you know, like the bull cycle is cyclical. So there will be a time period in the bear market where this is time to really hone in and start, buying assets cheap. And then during a bull market, this is where you really want to learn exit strategies, and being able to take profits and, have that emotional mindset to put that back into fiat. So then you can utilize that money to move away and live a lifestyle like this in
I couldn't
Bali.
agree more. And on that note, I would say also it's so important to know yourself, right? Like know your risk tolerance. And you touched on an interesting point, like regarding your like fundamental education when it comes to crypto. I know that when I first entered crypto, I came in as CMO for now my fiance's company. And then later, like that spun into, we ended up like, creating our own project. It was, it still is, I think, like the second launch pad in the world. But anyway, so I had to learn like from like a truly fundamental, like technical level, everything about crypto before and as I started investing. I feel like I was doing marketing for this project in this company. There were like multiple portfolio companies under the like umbrella mothership company. But I had to like learn, and that's most of us, right? Like you kind of have to learn everything like as you're doing it in real time. But at the same time, you don't necessarily, and I'd be curious to know like what your thoughts are, like you don't necessarily have to know like everything about all things crypto. I feel like knowing your risk appetite, like how much dispensable income do you have? Because when you are working a full-time job and you do have your overhead, right? And you have, maybe for the people, they have kids. I don't have kids yet. You don't have kids yet. But like, if you have to take care of your overhead, and then initially, you invest, this is what I say anyway to, my, like on my channel and to my subscribers and followers, is like initially start off like investing what you don't need to live off of, right? Otherwise you wreck yourself like in the beginning. But then from there, and this is, so I'd be curious to know like what you think, is like there's so many different types of crypto tokens, and it's important to believe in what you're going to invest in. Otherwise you're just not going to be following it, right? In which case you'll do a bad job at managing your investments. So like once you decide, I guess, what you want to invest in, then like doubling down on that, I think is wise, as opposed to like spray and pray, like chasing whatever's flying. So yeah, because I know you coach too, right? Like you have your consulting business.
Yes.
So how do you go about advising your clients or your students, on how to identify what types of crypto tokens they want to invest in? Yeah, like how do you go about that bit? Like what advice would you give regarding that?
I think you're right in terms of like the spray and pray strategy. A lot of the portfolio audits that I do, so when a client onboards, I do a portfolio audit. So I look at what they've currently got. If they have a portfolio, if they don't have a portfolio, then we kind of curate one for them. And one of the main things that I try to do is mitigate like super high risk stuff. So a lot of people will be overexposed in memes, and if it's their first cycle, it's very hard for them to pinpoint which memes are going to do well, because they don't have the like insider knowledge for that. So it's mitigating that, and then also understanding that there's a very few amount of like cryptocurrencies and blockchains that are actually going to do quite well this cycle. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of tokens, right? So it's very difficult to pinpoint which ones, but it's about understanding what are the performing ones. So looking inside of like different data points. So, how well is the Solana blockchain performing right now? How well is Sui doing? How well is Hyperliquid doing? Like a lot of these type of like really good utility tokens, we kind of curate that as like the foundation for really good standing blockchains, and obviously Bitcoin as well being like the foundation, because that's like a long-term hold now. So yeah, it's really creating a portfolio that is going to do really well for them, and then understanding what their risk tolerance is and seeing what we can do to, if they're more on the lower risk side, then we create a portfolio that might be more top heavy Bitcoin with like good standing utility tokens like Solana and Sui, for example. If they're more on the riskier side, then you can have a percentage of your portfolio that's used in the casino if they want, but very small, like super small, like less than 5% of their portfolio, because if you lose that, then that's all good. It's neither here nor there for them. So yeah, that's kind of how I go about looking at different clients and how to distribute their portfolio, and also understanding what their emotional stability is as well, because one of the main things I've realized by like looking after a bunch of clients is understanding that like a lot of the mistakes that people make is emotionally driven. And it's also about making sure that they have conviction in those plays, because if they don't have conviction, then what they're going to end up doing is panic selling those tokens and trying to chase a pump from another token that's now up 20%, 30%, 40% on that pump. They'll buy it, and then it goes in for a pullback, and then they lose even more money, and then they can just spiral out of control that way. So it's also about understanding their emotional capacity as well, and that will help with how risky the portfolio goes as well.
I agree. And let's get into what I know everyone is dying to know, and like some of the main questions I get all the time on my channel is what are your favorite altcoins? Like which are they?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite ones, obvious answer is obviously Solana. I just love Solana. Solana's great. widely adopted blockchains. The data just shows like how good it is and how amazing it is in performance and adoption. Even though the price is down like quite significantly, for me, I've just been DCAing and buying more because the data doesn't lie. You can still see that people are utilizing the blockchain. And the performance over the last year for Solana, at a low of $12 to then reaching new all-time highs before any other real layer one blockchain is a testament to how strong it is. And then on the flip side, the main competitor and the number one competitor for me for Solana is Sui. And you can see that time. Yeah, Sui is amazing. I remember looking at it. I think it was maybe in 2023 when it first released. It was a $200 million market cap, and now it's reaching I think it's 11.4 billion now. So it's just performed insanely well. But also, again, the data doesn't lie. Like there's a bunch of projects that are building actively on it. 197,000 transactions per second, super fast. You can see that, even the stablecoin market cap is going up for Sui. So that means people are injecting stablecoins into Sui and are wanting to use the blockchain. The DEX volume is at all-time high right now. So even during this dip, people are starting to move into Sui and starting to utilize its blockchain and trade tokens within that. So for me, the price doesn't lie, the data doesn't lie. Sui, I think, is going to be the Solana of last cycle. That's where I see Sui. So for me, Solana, Sui, those are my two.
I totally agree.
Right now.
Actually, I just did a podcast with Ronnie. He has a Spanish channel called Crypto Avances, and I asked him this question, and he said that actually, okay, so yeah, for sure Solana for now, but he did bring up a good point. I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. He said that in the long run, I guess he's a little skeptical of Solana because of its random outages, right? Like it has gone down periodically. So I don't know if they've managed to repair that. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how it goes. But I can see that being, that's a flaw. Like hopefully they're working on it behind the scenes. I don't know. I know they're very good at marketing, and we know that if you're good at marketing, like, you succeed. Plus, I know that without a doubt, like they've performed extremely well. The volume, liquidity, everything, transactions, everything, plus the whole meme craze, it was primarily on Solana.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. And still is, right?
And still is.
And actually, on that note, I'd be curious to know how, at what point do you feel that the altcoin parabolic phase is on, right? Like, what key indicators do you follow or are you looking at that will signal to you, hey, it's starting?
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of main charts that I look at. Number one being Bitcoin dominance, of course, because it shows, how dominant Bitcoin is against the rest of the market. At the moment, like Bitcoin dominance trajectory is up right now. So for me personally, like Bitcoin is king right now during these, macroeconomic conditions. There's still a lot of uncertainty in the markets in terms of, the Trump tariff pause. Also, is Jerome Powell going to start dropping interest rates? So until a lot of these things get settled, I don't think we're going to see dominance in altcoins just yet. I think the dominance is going to continue with Bitcoin. Once we see that start to drop, though, that's a key indicator for me that we're going to start some kind of altcoin rally. You can also use altcoin season index. That's a really good chart. We're in Bitcoin season right now. As soon as we get out of Bitcoin season, then that's a really good indicator that we're in an altcoin season or heading towards an altcoin season. And then other charts, any chart that is against Bitcoin. So you can see like the alt Bitcoin chart has just hit a new low. So you can still see that, Bitcoin is dominating here, but it is hitting a low. So I don't think it has too much longer until altcoins start to perform. And with that, I don't think it's too much longer until we start to see, a drop in interest rates. And, we can also see the global liquidity increasing massively over the last couple months. So that liquidity is then going to start to get interjected into the crypto markets as well, of which is going to get interjected into altcoins. So I don't think we've got too much longer left to wait. Maybe 6 to 8 weeks.
Agreed. Exactly. I can't wait. I cannot wait. On that note, which I know when we met, you were saying that you use Morales money, right? Like that's one of the key tools. Yeah. What other tools would you say are your go-to tools, or you use the most?
I love to look at DeFi Llama because I want to understand like total value locked. I want to understand which DeFi ecosystems are like flourishing at the moment, and how much liquidity is getting injected into that. It also helps me find really cool DeFi projects as well. So if you go into like the Sui blockchain, it will showcase all of the top projects within that. So I like to use that. On-chain metrics, I like to use Glassnode just because I want to track, certain different things. And it could be, for example, net unrealized profit loss. That's a really good indicator of like how many people on chain are in profit of certain altcoins. If that gets too high for me, then that's like a red flag, and that's where I need to kind of start to, take liquidity off the table. There's another one that I like to use called Drops tab. That is where I can track other people's wallets and understand like they're buying. So for example, I check World Liberty Financial, which is obviously the Trump's family's DeFi project. Yeah, I like to track what they're buying, what they're selling, things like that. And then I guess other tools that I use would be just looking at like Bitcoin spot ETF inflows, just so I can see what institutions are doing, whether they're buying or selling into the spot ETF. So those are the main kind of platforms that I use most of those.
I love Kaito too. Have you tried Kaito? Yeah, it's a bit pricey.
No, I've never heard of that. What does that do?
It's like a combination of all of these different tools together, and it's AI powered. So it's just like really visual, very nice. You can see, like where money's moving in the ecosystem from what chain to what chain. Can track a lot of smart wallets, smart money wallets. It's just, I think it's just like a really nice UI experience. That's a really good tool too. Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you also regarding this whole, have you heard, I'm sure you've heard, like many people are talking about how Bitcoin is breaking away from its 4-year cycle. And I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are, because I completely, well, I don't completely, because it's not, you can't really quite prove it 100%. But I think that like all of the macro signals, if you just combine, like connect all the dots, you can really see how this cycle is completely different than all previous cycles. And I think, and I think it's also going to stretch out. It's going to be a prolonged bull run as well. And I know on your channel, you've spoken about this a bit as well. So I'd be curious to know like what your reasoning is as to where we are and, like how this bull run plays out.
There's a plethora of different reasons as to why I think one, Bitcoin is just decoupling from the rest of the market anyway. One of the main things being obviously institutional adoption. They play the long-term game, so they don't care about the 4-year cycle like the rest of us have played it in previous cycles. So they don't care about that necessarily. The other thing is with the US now creating a Bitcoin strategic reserve, they're going to be taking a percentage of the supply off the market. There's that supply crunch. There's going to be that, almost that FOMO of trying to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible, which is why I do think that Bitcoin will probably have somewhat of a prolonged cycle. Not only that, but from a macro perspective, we're still not out of quantitative tightening. So we haven't even seen Bitcoin this cycle in QE, right? So that means once we start going into QE, then that I think will have a huge effect on the Bitcoin price, of which is why I think it's going to go beyond the 4-year traditional cycle. If you also look at the fact that, for example, when gold's ETF was first released in 2003, gold ended up going on an 8-year bull cycle, right? and Bitcoin is only in year 1 of its ETF. So, you know, we could have something similar like that as Bitcoin's now being coined the digital gold, as it's decoupling from the stock market, as people are seeing it more of a safe haven during really difficult economic times. It only makes sense in my head that Bitcoin will likely have a prolonged cycle. How long that cycle is, I'm not 100% sure, but I do think that, you know, Bitcoin will probably have
Yeah,
an
for sure.
elongated
Completely
cycle of some
agreed.
form.
And what is your price prediction? Where do you think Bitcoin tops this bull run? Like what number?
I like to be like
Yeah.
super conservative. So for me, I'm looking at
No
anywhere
way.
between 125 to 150,
That's
which I think
very
is
modest. Yeah.
conservative, like really conservative. Or that's where I'm looking at, you know,
Okay.
taking profits on my altcoins. So like when Bitcoin
Mhm.
starts to get into that territory, that's when I'm going to be looking at like taking profits on my altcoins. With Bitcoin,
Yeah,
I don't plan on taking profits on
for sure. Yeah.
Bitcoin. Bitcoin's my retirement account. So like I don't care about like where Bitcoin gets to this cycle. What I do care about is like getting out of my altcoins.
No
I'm also
way.
mining Bitcoin at the
Cool.
moment. I've got a bunch of Bitcoin miners. So I'm like super long term with you know, with Bitcoin. So for me, you know, could Bitcoin get up to 250k this cycle? I definitely think it's a possibility. But where my like danger territory starts for the altcoins is when Bitcoin starts to push into, you know,
Interesting.
between 150
Actually, I
and 200.
just saw a snippet. I need to go watch the full interview, but some podcaster interviews CZ and they ask him the same question. And he says that he could see Bitcoin at 500,000 up to $1 million this bull run. So yeah.
Yeah, I just on that actually about what the possibility is for Bitcoin to get to $1 million and what it would take. And we did a lot of research in terms of like institutional adoption. So Kathy Wood, for example, says that if institutions have a 6.5% allocation of Bitcoin, which is a pretty low, modest number, that would, you know, put Bitcoin at a $20 trillion market cap, which would be around $1 million a coin. So if institutional adoption like continues and they continue to buy, then it's definitely a possibility. I don't know if it's going to happen in 2025. My prediction would be more towards
Really?
2028 to 2030 for $1 million a coin, but
Interesting.
anything's possible.
Yeah, interesting. I think Bitcoin continues to go up, like ongoing for who knows. I mean, definitely, I think like 2 years sounds just about right. I think like ongoing indefinitely is probably what is actually going to happen, you know, with some corrections along the way, just reacting to the market or whatnot, you know. But I think that the mass adoption is just literally unbelievable right now across the world. And and then yeah, like so many companies put, you know, adding it to their like different company, you know, like financial structures.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to get your perspective on if you think that Bitcoin's going to have like this prolonged bull cycle, which I do think is a possibility. I think, you know, Bitcoin could still dip 50% and you could technically still be in a bull market, right? But what do you think is the catalyst for altcoins then? Do you think that they're going to have a prolonged bull cycle, or is Bitcoin going to
Yeah.
decouple? Like, what
Yeah.
do you think?
Well, I think
on that
Bitcoin
perspective?
is already decoupling in large part or showing signs of its potential to decouple completely, like just completely become its own independent asset type and market. Definitely. I think it's already doing that. We just don't know if it's completely decoupled from altcoins because altcoins haven't kicked off yet. Right. But once they kick off, then that'll be like the true litmus test. And then I think we'll really know. But I think altcoins, what was the exact question? Like when do they actually when does their bull run kick off? Or like what was the exact question?
So it's more like, do you think altcoins are going to
Ongoing
have like
run.
a run this year and then go into a
Yeah.
bear?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they really could. I don't know if like I don't know if I could give a definitive answer to that, but I think they definitely could. Only because we
Mhm.
have amazing utility tokens, RWAs, real world asset tokens. We know, like Larry
Yeah,
Fink is talking about like let's tokenize everything. Um, so I think that we have real utility tokens that are making real world mass, like infiltration, like Chainlink, for instance. And they're touching the
yeah, yeah,
real
yeah.
world. And so I think that now that Bitcoin has been, like formally globally adopted, through the ETFs, I think everyone is like ears perked up, and they're paying attention to Bitcoin now, which means, and we see this with companies adding so much Bitcoin to their own balance sheets that like their wheels are turning. So then what's next? Oh, how can we use blockchain technology, to improve our company's functionality? And then the question, keeps, like begging itself. And plus we have, the M2 money supply increasing, plus the Bitcoin strategic reserve. So I think you add these things together and you have all this extra liquidity eventually that rolls over into the crypto market at the same time that, real utility tokens are doing and making real traction. So that money then makes it into them. That's like marketing, right? That's like basically what's going to happen. It's going to be marketing for these good utility tokens, which then it's like, like absolutely going to then spill over into meme coins, and then meme coins have like a reverse marketing effect as well, because everyone gets burnt, right? Like you're just going to get burnt.
Yeah.
Like if you're new and watching this interview, or like in the future or whatever, like everyone, or if this has already happened to you, like we all know everyone gets burnt the first time. You're going to ape into some meme coins, you're going to get wrecked. But then what happens is you get burnt, and then you're like, what else is there? Or like, what are the real crypto token investment opportunities that I should be putting my money into? And then, so I think that because of the real tech development, like this bull run is so different also in the sense that the space has matured a lot, and we've had real utility tokens
Yeah.
make it through bear markets and are still standing. We've had, yes, we've
Yeah.
had a lot of really bad negative PR through like FTX, the FTX fiasco, whatever, Lunaterra, all these things. But at the same time, we've also had great marketing for good exchanges, like with what Bybit went through, and they were able to, out of their own reserves, just cover the hacked amount, the deficit. And I think that we have real tech growing. We've had utility tokens make it through bear markets, still standing, doing well despite bear market conditions, like Solana, like what you were just talking about, you know? So I think this bull run is very different. And
Yeah.
once that liquidity enters and hits altcoins, yeah, I think it is gonna run. It's a whole new sector to the market. And so maybe
Yeah.
yeah, I think maybe
Gains.
like a question that spawns off of your question is, like, will all altcoins run? And the answer would be no, right? The answer would be definitely
Mm,
no. But will some
yeah.
and really good ones continue to run? Yes, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. Totally. I think like the main utility tokens will do really well. I mean, be cautious around mid cap to low cap altcoins because a lot of the liquidity is going into meme coins and AI agents. A lot of the liquidity that would have flowed into those low cap and mid cap coins are, going into the casino instead. So those I think have the highest risks of like not going anywhere this cycle. But like the high utility tokens, I think will be really good and will survive. I think like for example, Sui, I think is going to do really well, and I think it's going to survive the bear market as well
Yeah.
and
I
run in
agree.
the next
I
cycle.
completely agree. And what advice would you give to new people say they watch this interview and they want to get started and they don't know where to start, like what would you tell them, like how to get started?
I think the main thing to do is, what I did is I had like a very small pot of money that I started with. I started with like $500, right? And I used that as learning lessons. So it's like, what cryptos do well, what don't. Use it as learning lessons and like grow from there, but also just research, and just understand like what the crypto market is and how it functions and the technology. Because once you understand like the long-term vision of where like crypto and blockchain's going, you can make much better decisions on what blockchains and what altcoins you want to invest in. So, like understanding that like tokenization of real world assets, like this is a main narrative that's gonna, stay and stick around, and understanding what are the top performing RWA assets, and then, putting a percentage of your portfolio in that. What are the best utility tokens? Putting a percentage of your portfolio in that. Understanding that Bitcoin is around for a really, really long time. Putting a percentage of your portfolio in that, and just learning from it. And slow and steady wins the race. You don't need to become a millionaire tomorrow. Like, crypto is an extremely volatile place, but just having a strategy in place. And also sometimes it's good to have like, mentors or people that you follow or people that you trust, to be able to help you along the way as well. So, piggybacking off of people that have been in this market for a really, really long time can speed up that process as well. It's taken me 6 years to get to where I am today. If you could do that in a shorter period of time with mentorship or with other people, then that's also really helpful as well.
So much, right? Like you don't want to make your own mistakes. You want to piggyback off of other people's mistakes. That's definitely the way to go. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to come do this interview and share your perspective and experience on how to navigate this crypto space, and how to invest. It's definitely, definitely, it sounds cheesy, but it's definitely the new wild, wild west, and like, man, like you can have conversations with like, so many different people at like crypto conferences and stuff, and everyone's at a completely different place. I think that's also important to know, is that crypto is so vast that you're always learning. So if you feel lost or like overwhelmed, that's very, very normal. And it's literally like extremely alien. It's extremely alien, and like learning a whole new language, like it's like, I feel like I'm always learning. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like, it's literally like never ending. Right. And I think that's also the formula for doing well is, like checking and double checking. And that's why they say in crypto, like do your own diligence, do your own, due diligence, like yes, like find a mentor and everything, but then like take everything that they say and you go back and you study it. And that, like to your point, like also like based off of your experience, like what you shared is you start off investing basically with, like play money. It's almost like paper trading, it's like, don't like consider that like your training wheels. And so be prepared to lose it and don't cry. And if you cry, just remember what that feels like, because it's going to feel a lot worse when you lose a lot more, like seriously, like and just know that you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And that's, it's like, it's all part of the journey. And as long as you accept that and you keep learning, you take your own responsibility on your finances and all your decisions, like you will do well, but you really do have to take all of this to heart. And anyway, so anyway, thank you so much once again, and we'll have to have you back on the channel to cover what's going on once the market keeps evolving, and who knows what's going to happen with this whole tariff situation. Yeah. 100%. Okay, awesome. Well, have a lovely day. And thank you once again so much for coming on and sharing all your experience with everybody.
Thank you for having me.
If you got value from today's conversation with Danielle, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend and a family member or anyone that you meet that has questions on how to get started investing in crypto. Also, smash the like button, drop your biggest takeaway or perhaps your question on what we talked about today. Also, let me know what other guests you would like me to bring on the channel and what questions you would want me to ask them. This is more than just content. I would hope the information I bring you on my channel become your roadmap to building wealth in this new economy, this new world we call Web3. Also, you're going to want to check out Danielle's social media links, which I'll link below in the description, so you can also follow her and get her take on the future of finance and how to navigate it. All right, guys, I love you so much, and I'll catch you in my next video. Ciao.